Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show on a Monday following a Week 11 of football. That was so awesome, so exciting. So many great matchups from Thursday Night Football until tonight, Monday Night Football. This game is arguably the best Monday Night Football game of the year, arguably the best game of the year. We're getting the Super Bowl rematch, Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Both teams are fully healthy, as at least we think. I know that's going to be a big conversation in the NFL going forward with this whole investigation into Joe Burrow and the fact that he wasn't on the injury report. I'll play that clip and my instant reaction to that game and the news that Joe Burrow was not healthy a little bit later in the show. And I'll also share my pick for tonight's game a little bit later in the show. But let's start off with what I think was the most important topic after Week 11. I think it was the number one thing trending on Twitter. I think everybody's ready to acknowledge it, whether you're a fan, a foe, an enemy of the team, you're not too involved in football, you just watch from afar. Everybody is willing to come to the same conclusion. Hashtag Fire Staley was the number one trending thing on Twitter yesterday after that slate of games. And I think when you look at Brandon Staley, a lot of people out there will say, on shows, on podcasts, I never want to call for anybody's job. And I feel the same way. I try not to be too critical of these coaches. But sports is an incredibly competitive and tough business. If you're not one of the best, you're not going to make it. And that's just the way it is, because there are billions of dollars on the line, millions depending on what position you're in, whether you're a broadcaster, a player, a coach. If you're not successful right away, or you don't find success, or you don't show signs of progress at least, you're most likely gone. And that's kind of understood. And nobody's going to cry over spilled milk, and nobody's going to cry over you. There's no crying in baseball, as they say. There's no crying, I think, in professional sports at all. It is a tough business to break into, and if you're not successful, you've kind of got it coming to you. In 3 years, this Chargers team, led by Brandon Staley, has failed to develop or establish any sort of identity on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. And I think even going back to year one, it was such a weird thing. You always hear about Brandon Staley. Everybody says he's a real smart guy, is what we heard, because he's analytics-based, and he's a forward thinker, and he's one of these modern minds in football, and he came from that Sean McVay coaching tree, and people try not to talk about that too much anymore because it feels like he is the one miss out of that coaching tree. But it was a weird red flag from day one. A former quarterback, former guy who understood offense, wanted to be a defensive coordinator because he understood how to read defenses, I guess. I mean, the only other person who's thought that way was Bill Belichick when he made Matt Patricia a defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator last year, and it didn't work out well. That is a weird thing. You don't make people who understand defenses offensive coordinators just because they know how to read the reverse, and you don't make offensive minds defensive coordinators. It doesn't make any sense. So that was the first red flag. Another thing, in year one with the Chargers, everybody always says, even if the team you're going to as a head coach is an absolute dumpster fire, it's awful, it's hot garbage, and everything is burning down around you, an early indicator of success is, can that new head coach get their side of the ball right? We're 3 years into this. I still don't think Brandon Staley has gotten his side of the ball right. And the Chargers, historically throughout my lifetime, have been considered, the ownership groups have been considered cheap, that they're not willing to invest in talent or invest in players or give out big contracts for players or for coaches. On Justin Herbert's rookie deal, they went all out. They bought a ton of talent, a ton on defense. They made sure to support Brandon Staley's endeavor as a defensive-minded head coach while they still had money and they still didn't have to pay Justin Herbert. And that team, I mean, eventually you can say the talent is underperforming, but eventually, at least over the course of a season, this season, you would think, even if they're not great from day one, they're going to get better, right? Coaching is, you can see coaching when you see signs of improvement over the course of a season. You see it with the Broncos, you see Sean Payton, how big of an impact he's made on that Broncos team, how much Russell Wilson has improved, how much the offense has gotten better, how much better the defense has gotten late in games. You see fingerprints of great coaching everywhere in a coach's first year. And Brandon Staley, 3 years into this thing, the defense still lets up big plays. The defense is bottom third in the league in opponent points per game. This defense is not a good team. They allowed the Green Bay Packers, who literally cannot score, who are a bottom half of the league team when it comes to points per game, and they allowed them to put up 23 and a really embarrassing loss. And the Chargers should have more wins than this. They only have 4 wins this year, though. One of them came to the Vikings. The other one came to the Raiders with no Jimmy Garoppolo. The other one came to the Bears with no Justin Fields. And their last win, their most recent win, came against the Jets, who had Zach Wilson under center, who just got benched this morning and has now been replaced officially as the Jets starting quarterback. We don't like any of the teams there. We don't think any of them are impressive. The Vikings, when they beat them, were literally incapable of winning any games early on in the year. This is not a good resume. And Brandon Staley is just above 500 in his tenure with the Chargers, and people are citing that as a reason maybe why you don't get rid of him. He choked a massive playoff lead. You see that his attitude has only gotten worse. Yesterday, I was so mad when I saw that press conference replay of Brandon Staley again getting mad at a reporter, getting real testy, getting real heated. Let me tell you, beyond sports, beyond coaches at the podium or players at the podium, one of the worst things in work and friendships, in sports in general, is when the biggest failure in the room with the biggest ego and the worst attitude ends up showing his true colors. And I think Brandon Staley, I don't know why they've been willing to give him such a long leash. I think it is, you can point to the Chargers ownership group historically and say, you know what, they're not willing to give out big contracts. They're even less willing to pay out a contract of a fired head coach. But I think right now the Chargers are in the best position possible to get rid of Brandon Staley and still look real smart about it. Because I think there's an excellent candidate out there. Last year, I thought for sure the Chargers were going to get Sean Payton, who ended up going to the Broncos, and I thought it was a huge miss. And you've got a chance to make it right. Very rarely in sports do you miss on a coach or on a player, and the next year you have a chance to make it right. Last year, I felt like the Chargers missed out on Sean Payton. He ended up going to the Broncos. This year, they have Brandon Staley. It looks like he's going to have to get fired. I don't think fans or that locker room or anybody is willing to put up with him any longer. Now, you can go out and get Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh over the weekend, the news is only getting worse and worse. There are now reports that Jim Harbaugh is expected to receive another punishment. I'm not sure if it's from the Big Ten or from the NCAA, that will essentially sideline him for more than half the year next year as Michigan's head coach. So he accepted the 3-game penalty, the sideline penalty for this season. That extends until next week's Ohio State game. He will not be present on the field. And next year, apparently word on the street is majority of next season, he's going to be forced to sit out as head coach. No agent, no friend, no family member, no brother, his brother Harbaugh, who's coaching for John Harbaugh, who's coaching the Baltimore Ravens. Nobody, not even Jim Harbaugh himself, is going to be advised or going to be willing to sit out more than half a season next year. His stock has never been higher. People understand that Jim Harbaugh is a great head coach, even his haters understand it. What does Jim Harbaugh do well? Jim Harbaugh is capable of immediately establishing an identity on a team. It'll take him 4 games. It will not take him more than 4 games to establish an identity for that Chargers team from the moment he walks into that building, maybe even sooner. Staley has been incapable of doing that in 3 years now as the head coach. This is a really obvious fix. It's a really clear fix. To me, it makes a lot of sense for Jim Harbaugh as well. There's no reason to stay at Michigan and sit out an entirety of a season or half a season or the majority of next season. That's ridiculous. He doesn't want to sit out. His competitive drive isn't going to allow him to sit around. He's going to go to the NFL, and I think the best team that can win now, he doesn't have to draft a quarterback. He doesn't have to wait to develop them. This Chargers team is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. They have a relatively good offensive line that could be better. They have some nice weapons in Keenan Allen and in Austin Eckler, who unfortunately was injured over the weekend, but they can get better. And Jim Harbaugh knows how to establish the line of scrimmage. He knows how to win at the line of scrimmage. He can create an immediate identity for this Chargers team, and we can see Justin Herbert truly go to another level, if that's even possible. He's already a top 5 quarterback. That team will finally start to win, because to me, a team like the Chargers, led by a talent like Justin Herbert at this point in his career, where we're not even sure if he's quite in his prime yet, he could still, there's still a decent amount of opportunity for him to get better and to be even better than this. That just feels like a match made in heaven. To me, Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers is all but done. I think that is an excellent next move. The Chargers can move off Brandon Staley. They can still look smart, and I can't wait to see what that team would look like under Jim Harbaugh. I think it's the perfect fit. You don't have to wait. You don't have to draft your own quarterback. I know people make a lot about that. Sure, drafting your own quarterback is great, especially if the team has a bad record and they have a high draft pick. But what if I told you that you could walk into a franchise with an already established quarterback that physically, from the intangible standpoint, is already a top 5 quarterback in the league? It makes a lot of sense to me. I really like this, and I think that is the perfect move for the Chargers moving forward. And in terms of Brandon Staley, I don't know where he gets a job next. I wouldn't be willing to give him one. He hasn't proven he's a good defensive mind. He's a defensive-minded head coach, and his team lets up massive plays in the fourth quarter. They cannot win games. They are 4-6 this year. He barely is above 500, and the only teams that he's beaten this year, 2 of them have been without their starting quarterback, and the other 2 are just bad teams overall. Nobody has faith in the Vikings or in the Jets with Zach Wilson at the helm or without Aaron Rodgers at the helm. It's ridiculous. I think it's time to move off Staley. The Chargers have the perfect out, and I think they also have the perfect solution. So yesterday, the Jets did not have Aaron Rodgers on the sideline for the first time in what felt like a long time. He's always been a staple of the sideline during his recovery process. He's made it a point to be seen and be on camera and be on the sideline and be around his team, really, throughout this recovery process. And I think it's been admirable because you've heard the stories of how much better it makes the locker room feel, how much faith and hope it gives them moving forward, how it gives them a little glimmer of hope, like there's light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing. Even though Zach Wilson is sticking up the bed and he's been bad, and he officially, as of this morning, has been benched from the Jets. They've now got their second-string quarterback in, or their third-string quarterback at this point. Rob Saleh has officially made the switch. He's not trying to fool anybody anymore. I think Zach Wilson's time in New York is done. Maybe they'll give him another year under Aaron Rodgers, but even that, I think at this point, is just nobody's going to buy into it. Nobody thinks that Zach Wilson at this point can become good enough under Aaron Rodgers or learn enough to make him a truly formidable quarterback or to live up to that second overall pick hype. It's just not a good look. He hasn't improved. I know we had high hopes for him. I know we thought maybe this year would be different if Aaron was playing and he was sitting on the bench, but he's been forced back out into the fire, baptism by fire, and he just hasn't looked good. And he's had plenty of opportunities in order to look good. But the big thing yesterday about Aaron Rodgers was he wasn't on the sideline of that Jets game. And apparently, we heard that a little bit earlier in the week, probably Friday, Saturday, the news broke, that Aaron Rodgers sent a video of himself working out to the team, and they played it in a team meeting. And apparently the quotes were, the players were shocked by what they saw, shocked by the progress of Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's been a silent storyline throughout this year that we really haven't talked about because I haven't wanted to bring it up quite yet, but I have been observing it. I think Aaron Rodgers coming back is an awesome story. I think it's a very exciting idea. I think the thought of itself, the fantasy for Jets fans of, you know what, he went out on week 1 and it looked bad and it felt like all hope was lost, but he's finally worked his way back and he's going to come back under center for us and he's going to be our true savior in more ways than we could have ever imagined if he comes back right before the postseason and leads us on a postseason run. It's a nice story. But this weekend, we saw a lot of great stories die. Josh Dobbs lost the game. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback who barely was able to win the game, and really he didn't win the game, but was the quarterback for the Browns who won over the weekend. They showed you what they thought of him. Sure, nice story. UCLA guy, got his first win in the NFL, was very emotional after. I was happy for him in that post-game press conference, but he made mistakes. And immediately after the game ended, the Browns signed Joe Flacco. Teams will show you what they think of their own players when they make signings like that. It feels like all the dreams and all the hopeful storylines at this point of the year, at week 11, the midway point of the regular season, are starting to die off. Zach Wilson has officially been benched. The next thing that I feel like is a realistic story, that is a nice story, but reality is going to hit real quick, is Aaron Rodgers coming back. I do not think Aaron Rodgers should come back to this Jets team, even if in his mind he thinks he is ready to come back or if he thinks he's healthy. You're talking about a 49-year-old quarterback who is going to have to come back, and he's not just going to stand in the pocket, and he's not going to be able to just collapse when pressure is coming his way. He is going to have to stand in the pocket. He's going to have to be able to move. He's going to have to be able to evade the first hit, or at least move up the pocket or move up the ladder, as some quarterbacks say. He's going to have to have the mental fortitude and the patience to stay in the pocket and make throws downfield and wait for plays to develop. He can't just get rid of the ball in a second like he would like to, like he normally does. He's going to have to sit and wait, especially with a Jets offensive line that is this bad. That feels like a recipe for disaster. The Jets offensive line in that Bills game debuted their 8th different offensive line combination this season. Mekhi Becton was brought off, went into the blue medical tent, was stretchered off the field, was carted off the field after whatever test they did in the blue medical tent. That Jets offensive line was bad from day one. We said it. They've only gotten worse. It's hard for me to imagine Aaron Rodgers coming back and feeling good about it when I see Zach Wilson get twisted like a pretzel after every single play. Zach Wilson has been running for his life for several weeks now. And he's young, and he can take hits. And maybe he recovers a little bit quicker from Monday through Thursday. And since he's a younger player and he doesn't feel it quite as much, Aaron Rodgers at his age will be the first to admit he's going to feel it. These hits and these bruises, they take longer to recover from. And I don't think it's a good idea for him to come back at 39 years of age, rushing an Achilles injury, to come back and play for a team that really, outside of one pass catcher, I don't really know if I feel great about them. Yesterday, for the first time ever, you saw it really collapse, that whole Jets, the way that they win. They let up some explosive plays. They can't do that. I think that locker room, you saw that some of the defensive players fighting with themselves. I thought it would happen earlier in the season, but it feels like it's happening later in the season, and that's why they had to bench Zach Wilson. This team is kind of imploding on itself, and this locker room is becoming slowly but surely lost, and guys they're laying up big plays. The frustrations are boiling over in the locker room. The defense just doesn't look like they're playing as a unit. They're frustrated. They know that no matter what they do, their offense is not going to give them a chance to win. And if Aaron Rodgers even comes back, that Jets offensive line, I don't have enough faith in them, and I don't have enough faith in him and his health at this point to think he's going to be able to comfortably evade pressure, evade tackles, make the right decision. I would be terrified if I was watching Aaron Rodgers as a Jets fan under center with that Jets offensive line. I think it's the worst decision he could possibly make. I do not think he should come back. I know he tends to go against the grain when it comes to science and whatnot, and he's been proven right in the past with certain things, but this is one of those things that I don't think he should want to be proven right about. I think wait it out. At least if you did the speed bridge surgery, you can wait until next year. You'll be a little bit healthier sooner. But I don't think rushing back out onto the field less than 4 months after that surgery is the right move. Not with that offensive line. It's not the Eagles' offensive line. It's not the Chiefs' offensive line. This is a bottom third of the league offensive line that has debuted 8 different offensive line combinations since week 1. It's not a good move for Aaron Rodgers to come back. Mekhi Becton going down. I can't emphasize it enough. Let the young guys, let the backups, let the third string guys take care of it and finish off this season. Don't be the savior for this team, because I think it'll cost you dearly if you're Aaron Rodgers and you come back under these circumstances knowing you are essentially all out on your own, because that offensive line cannot protect you. So it feels like a lot of people on this Monday are backtracking their Texans CJ Stroud takes. They're a little bit nervous after this weekend. I am not. The 1 o'clock matchup between the Cardinals and the Texans, I knew it was going to be interesting, and I was excited to watch it. And I know a lot of people probably turned it off or changed the channel if it was even available to you after the first few series of action or towards the end of the game when CJ Stroud was getting a little bit pick happy there. But if you watch that game the way that I did, I was very much in tune with it. The Texans, I think this week, it takes them a step further. I am not going to withdraw my CJ Stroud MVP takes or my hope for the Texans this season. As a matter of fact, to me, it only gave me more faith in the Texans as a whole when they faced the Cardinals this weekend, because you take a look at this Texans team, and they had shown you all year long their recipe for success was a nice, strong defense, a relatively good offense led by a sensational quarterback in C.J. Stroud. He had the ability to, from day one, take over games and really make it his own. He has been performing lights out. He's been playing well. He was the MVP favorite last week. Those odds probably went down for this weekend's games and the 3 interceptions that he threw, but I still think this Texans team is very dangerous. And to me, the comparisons that I draw between this Texans team, when I look at last year's teams and the postseason picture, this Texans team feels very much so like last year's Jacksonville Jaguars team. A team that's a dark horse team. Not too many people were very high on them going into the year. We thought their quarterback was good, but it was going to be too early. He was too young. We weren't quite sure what that was going to look like. Maybe there were some questions surrounding coaching. This Texans team, to me, has furthered their case as a real good dark horse team in this postseason. Right now, they are in the postseason picture, and I understand that they're going to be competing in that division with the Jags, who I'm drawing the comparison to from last year, and the Jags had a really good win over the weekend, a nice way to bounce back after a tough loss to the 49ers, a team that was coming off a bye and just overwhelmed them last week. But this year's Texans feels like the perfect dark horse team. And this weekend, what did they prove? This Texans team this year is top 10 in points per game. They're 4th in yards per game. They're 2nd in passing yards per game. And they're 8th in opponent rushing yards per game. And I think that's really interesting because the Texans this year have been incapable, in my opinion, of taking over the game by running the ball. But they've been just good enough on defense when it comes to playing against the run on defense that they haven't allowed the other team to run all over them. So they're not losing time of possession battles. They're right middle of the pack of the league. They're ranked 18th in the league when it comes to time of possession, 29 minutes and 50 seconds per game. That's their average. That's their median performance. So they're not getting dominated in terms of time of possession. They can score points. They can put up yards. And yesterday, they showed you they can win ugly. They showed you on a day when C.J. Stroud can't take over a game, when he's making good throws, but the turnovers are starting to kick in, and it's just an unfortunate and unlucky day from a turnover perspective, and he throws multiple interceptions. Yesterday's case, he threw 3. That defense can still hold their own. They can make plays. They can prevent big plays, and they can shut down a pretty good quarterback in Kyler Murray, who probably right now is coming back as a top 10 quarterback moving forward this year. He played relatively well, and he wasn't nearly as pick-happy as C.J. Stroud was, but he still played well. But by the same token, they found a way to shut him down later in the game. They were able to blitz the quarterback. They were able to bring the pressure. They were able to break up some big-time passes downfield. At the end of that game, when they needed it most, they were able to come up clutch with some pass breaks. This Texans team, great head coach, great rookie quarterback, great offense as a whole, and a defense that is silently getting better and better every single week, which you can credit DeMeco Ryans with, seeing as he is a defensive-minded head coach. The play calling looks good. This team looks good. That offensive line is playing great. C.J. Stroud had a bad game, but to me, it doesn't take away from the fact that this Texans team really turned a new leaf and showed us a new layer of, hey, maybe they don't have to win through C.J. Stroud. Maybe they can win these ugly games. And that's going to matter later on in the year when you are taking on a Kansas City Chiefs or a Baltimore Ravens team in the postseason. I don't think anybody wants to face this Texans team in the postseason. They proved they can win with their quarterback who can take over games, but they also showed you we can win ugly and we can still find a way to make it work with our defense, and we can come up clutch when it matters most. So tonight really could end up being the best game of the year. I am very excited. Monday Night Football at Arrowhead. Chiefs coming off a bye, facing off against the Eagles, the same team that they beat in the postseason after they went on a remarkable run. I'm talking about the Eagles, to really just find a way to dominate teams in terms of time of possession. And Jalen Hurts, in spite of an injury last season, really found a way to still ball, and he made some incredible plays in that Super Bowl. And we know he was injured, and he ended up fumbling the ball, but nobody ever blamed Jalen Hurts for that loss. It ended up catapulting him, and I think we now think of him and that Eagles team very differently than we did at the start of last year when we wondered, is this sustainable? Can this team really be as dominant as they've shown us to be? It turns out that that's exactly who they are. They have been very good. And the Chiefs have also silently gotten better this year on defense. Steve Spagnuolo, that defense has been a top 5 or 6 defense in the league this year. They've been shutting out teams and shutting down teams who we think are offensive juggernauts, like, for example, when they, just a couple weeks ago in Germany, on the road, they arrived there later than their opponent. They shut down a first-half Dolphins team that normally would get off to a blazing start, and they showed us maybe the Dolphins aren't as great a team as we thought, especially on the road, especially against a better team like the Chiefs. I think both teams, it's really hard to pick, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs in tonight's matchup. I just think Patrick Mahomes coming off a bye, Andy Reid coming off a bye, they're going to find a way to make sure that the offense today, even though I'm sure we'll see a lot of action involving Travis Kelce, they're going to find a way to make sure it's not reliant on him 100%. They're going to be real dynamic. They're going to make some incredible plays. I would assume tonight a good bet would be Kadarius Toney anytime touchdown. I feel like he's probably going to have to get in on the action and get in on the mix, and they're going to have to make it a really dynamic game plan in order to win this game. But I think compared to last year, this Eagles secondary silently has been a little bit lackluster. They haven't been as good this season as we thought they'd be. They are definitely missing some guys, and they are missing some of the better guys from that defense from last year. But that pass rush is going to be a problem. I assume they're going to be able to get after Patrick Mahomes, even though the Chiefs' offensive line is pretty good, there's too much depth and there's too much great talent on that defensive line for the Eagles. I assume pressure will be a problem, but I still see the Chiefs winning a high-scoring game. I'm assuming both teams score over 30. My total for the game, I put 68 on the ESPN picks, and I am picking the Kansas City Chiefs. 52% of people are picking the Chiefs tonight on ESPN's fantasy streaks bets. 48% of people are picking the Philadelphia Eagles. Do with that information what you will. This is a very even matchup. I wouldn't be shocked if the Philadelphia Eagles end up winning this team. They're probably the better overall team. They've got more depth. I just think coming off a bye, it's hard for me to go against Andy Reid and the potential game plan that I think is going to be excellent moving forward in tonight's game. I cannot wait. It's at 8 o'clock on ESPN. It's going to be a great one. Probably, most likely will be on ABC as well, because how could you not for a game of this magnitude? With that being said, that is all for today's show. Happy Thanksgiving week to all of you. I am so very thankful for all of you who tune into this show, who like and subscribe, who engage in the comments, who engage on social media. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the Black Friday game. The first time we're ever going to get a game on Black Friday. That should be an interesting schedule. 4 games in a matter of 2 days, and we're not even talking about Saturday or Sunday. I can't wait. I hope you guys all enjoy the week with your family, with your friends. Have a great one. Know that I am very thankful for you guys, and that I can't wait to see how we continue to evolve as this show goes on, really, throughout the end of this year. I think I've got some cool things on the horizon. I can't wait to share them with you. Hopefully I can share those things soon, but I'm very excited, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.